Are you searching for answers? Discover your true identity. Stay tuned to Shalom World.
I believe that there is something happening in the heart of God, a love dance that creates an energetic flow of divine love. Joining this flow is the only way to live meaningfully because it enlivens you and makes you live life to the fullest. My name is Father Dominic Orih, and I invite you with this episode, your identity, to explore who you really are in the heart of God. There is a story in the Bible about a man named Jacob. Jacob, as a young boy, was loved deeply by his mother Rebekah. But Jacob wanted to be loved more by his father Isaac and be validated by him because he thought that would then make him special. Jacob's father, however, loved Esau, his older brother, because Esau was the firstborn child. As Isaac was about to die, he was going to bless Esau as the tradition demands. Now Esau has got a hairy skin, and his father would recognize him by just touching his skin, because now his father Isaac has lost his sight, he's blind. Jacob learned about this and had to pretend to be his brother by putting on an animal skin on his body. His father noticed something was off, so he asked Jacob, "Who are you?" And Jacob said, "I am Esau." He deceived his father and received the blessing meant for Esau, his brother. When Esau learned about this, he was so furious that he went after Jacob to kill him. But already, Jacob had run away with the help of his mother. Jacob had to spend almost all his life on the run because of what he had done. Jacob wanted to be his brother because he was not courageous to be who he is. And so he said, "I am Esau," because he was too afraid of being Jacob. As the story goes, one day, Jacob found himself wrestling with an angel. They wrestled till daybreak, and Jacob wouldn't let the angel go. The angel asked Jacob to let him go, but Jacob responded, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." But then the angel asked Jacob, "Well, what is your name?" At this time in history, people understood your name as something that is deeply connected to who you are, to your identity, to your substance, to the very fabric of your being. So to be asked your name is essentially asking, who are you? And yet, how many of us today are unable to answer that question? The story of Jacob is our story because in some sense, we are in a hypnotic trance of falsehood. In many ways, we have pursued what is attractive to us, but not what is authentic of us. We have worshipped on the altar of delusion instead of reality. We have become comfortable with our false self instead of our true self. We have read the scripts of others, not our own scripts, pretending to be other people like Jacob. And now we find ourselves on the run, running from our destiny, but we realize that we are getting tired of being somebody else. Who are you? This is the question that you have to ask yourself if you really want to start living. The problem is, as simple as the question sounds, the answer is not so simple. It has become a daunting experience to truly understand who you are in this day and age, because we have been fire hosed with appealing but untrue answers to that question. Society has in many ways influenced us to embrace our false self, and now we don't know who we really are. Have you ever been in a party and somebody you just met asks you, "What's your name?" And then the follow-up to that question is, "And what do you do?" In a way, It is like they are trying to quantify you with what you do. Like your worth as a human being is directly connected to what you do. If we're being honest here, you've probably done similar things several times when you judge people or place people you have just met on a scale of value by what they do. Why? Because we all are products of our society of this day and age. Our society has taught us how to evaluate people's value by what they do. It is like we have placed more emphasis on what people do to determine their importance and less emphasis on who they are as a fellow living, breathing human being. As a result, we have spent untold energy trying to elevate our worth by what we do without knowing who we are. This is what Thomas Merton called the false self. Most of us prefer to live out our false self because it is comfortable instead of embracing our true selves. And it seems our culture and religion today has made us to be comfortable with our false self. We praise and celebrate all the wrong things and condemn all that should be praiseworthy. We are preoccupied with making a list of sins not to commit so that we don't go to hell, instead of bringing about heaven here on earth. We are preoccupied with who is right and who's wrong, instead of recognizing the divine force of love that binds us all together. St. Paul, writing to one of the churches he founded, said, "You are already saints. Now, in the light of that, go forth and live like people who are born out of God's love." The same St. Paul, before his conversion, was busy steeped into the fabric of growing his false self. He achieved a lot of things as both a Jew and a Roman citizen, enjoyed being a dual citizen. He was a devout Jew, had a decent education because he studied under Gamaliel. He was well skilled and had lots of connections to the powers that be. He was well known and respected. Paul, who went by the name Saul at that time, thought that his achievements defined him. He held high his religious laws and convictions because they were in a way appealing to the ego. I'm on the right path and others aren't. This is why Saul was persecuting Christians, because he saw these followers of the way as opposing the right Jewish religion and way of life. He would boast about getting his circumcision on the 8th day, which is the normal day to get a circumcision as a Jewish person. And he would glory in his conquest of Christians because for him, he was doing God's job. But then Saul was struck by the dazzling light of God's love and everything changed for him. He went from Saul to Paul and realized that there is no separateness. Anything that gears towards separateness is a false self. There are no thems and us. Now Paul, writing to the Galatians, would say things like, "There is no male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus." In his letter to the Colossians, Paul said that our original identity is hidden in Christ. Knowing this truth is how we encounter our absolute safety in God. It goes in both directions. As Richard Rohr puts it, it is through encountering the absolute safety of God that we discover our true self. And in finding our true self, we find a God who is always and forever larger than we can expect. The truth of our identity wrapped up in God gives us a deep sense of radical okayness and yet humility about our fragility. What a paradox. This is the you that is eternal in Christ, the you that nothing will absolutely change or diminish, the you that is always in union with God, and the you that is ever at home with faith, hope, and love. And faith is the conviction that whatever is happening in your life, it all means something. Hope is a conviction that this something is headed somewhere good and positive. And love is a conviction that this positive movement of your life includes you, your own good. And yes, it defines your very existence. When you are at home with this, you that is at home with faith, hope, and love, that's when you are living from your true identity, what Thomas Merton calls the true self. That is why the true self is never offended, but the false self always finds a way to be offended. Observe that in your life. Once you are in the space where you feel entitled or a victim, you feel offended, as though everyone is against you. That is when you are operating from the false self. The true self is what Richard Rohr calls living from the ground of your being. This is your true ground, your deepest and eternal truth. One that was custom made for each and every one of us from the moment of our conception. It is who you are in God and who God is in you. Your true identity is the fact that you are a child of God, and nothing will ever change that. You are born of all there is. You are born of that which is divine, eternal, infinite love and grace, and you are connected to all there is. This is the you that is hidden in Christ, through whom all things were made in heaven and on earth, and through whom all things are held into being. This is the you that is far more than the role you play in the world. You are not the color of your skin. You are not the language you speak. You are not your gender or sex, as Richard Rohr would say. You are not your physical passion, nor the weight of your bank account. You are not the positions you hold. You are not the job you do. You are not your status or achievement. The you that is eternally you is something that goes beyond all these things, beyond all these metaphors. Our task in this life is to awaken and allow our true self to be, and then we can live out our true and deepest messages for the world. This is why you have to dig and excavate deeply in order to build your life on solid ground, the ground of your being. In the Bible, it is what Jesus meant when he said, you have to build your house on solid rock so that the winds of falsehood will not blow you away. And I mean that literally and metaphorically. We need to unlearn the false messages we have inherited from culture, religion, and family so that we can embrace our foundational identity that is hidden in Christ, as St. Paul said in his letter to the Colossians. Sadly, it is hard to know who you are beyond all this when everything around you is screaming to you that your false self is your true self. These go back a long time ago, and we can see it filter in ancient stories and literature. In the Bible, the people of Israel found themselves enslaved by the Egyptians. Every day they would make bricks for all the buildings happening in ancient Egypt, and also build the buildings themselves. Whatever they do, making bricks and laboring was their life 7 days a week. When Moses wanted them to have some days off so that they could make offering to Yahweh, Pharaoh refused to grant them some time off. Instead, he increased their workload, accusing them of being lazy. When your life is fraught with doing stuff because all the voices around you say you are worthless and lazy, if you're not doing stuff, it could easily define who you think you are. For the Israelites, this became their story. When they were rescued from the Egyptians and settled in the desert, God commanded them to set a day apart where they would rest and do no work. This day would be sacred and known as a Sabbath. But it was hard for them to do so because all their life, all that they ever known to do was work. There was no rhythm to their life. The whole life, their entire life was defined by what they did or didn't do. It was as if Egypt in them told them that their worth was the number of bricks they could possibly produce, because it was their only way of getting through the day without additional punishment for not reaching their quota of bricks each day. For them, what it means to be human was directly connected to what they were able to achieve each day through their labor. So now that they have left Egypt, God wanted them to know that their worth is not dependent on what they were able to achieve, but on the fact that they are children of God, whose value and identity is independent of what they were able to achieve. So they would spend the day not doing any work, but resting and remembering the fact that as human beings, they are first and foremost called to be. As Robel would say, you are a human being, not a human doing. But sadly, They have lost sense of that because they have forgotten who they are. Egypt was hard to leave them even when they have left Egypt. They were enslaved to doing stuff without knowing how to be. Is this you? You have spent your entire life building a certain identity for yourself, and yet you feel so lost on the inside. You have tried everything they say that will satisfy your inner hunger, and you feel so empty, lost, and disconnected to the source of life, disconnected to what it means to be. You have achieved a lot, and yet you have achieved nothing. When you feel this restlessness in you, the longing that there is something more, like you have settled or trapped in your own life, it is a sign that you have been operating from the false self and you don't know who you are. The other day, I was having lunch with a friend of mine, and during our conversation, she said to me, "Dom, I don't know what I'm doing anymore because I don't know where my life is headed to." To which I responded, "Aren't we all?" But there was a pain in her heart as she said those words. You could feel it through her voice. It is the pain of, what am I doing with my life? The pain of feeling like you are just skimming through your own existence, going through the motion, or having to endure another day of misery. The feeling of despair that tomorrow is going to be a repeat of today. Like you are a cog in a wheel and your thoughts about your identity is deeply connected to what you do. When you don't know who you are, you don't know what to do with your life. As Richard Rohr once said, when you get the question of who you are right, what you are to do takes care of itself. Don't ever believe the lie that who you are is directly connected to what you do or what you have achieved. I remember when I was training to be a priest, I would dream of the day that I would be ordained a priest so that people would call me Father Dom. I began building much of my identity on the title that I will eventually get from being a priest. It meant a lot to me that when I became a priest and people call me by my name without saying Father, that would get me offended. In a way, I was thinking that by not being called Father, they were diminishing my worth and who I am. And I wanted to control that because we all want to control what people think of us, don't we? I spent a lot of energy building and polishing my false self without even realizing it. And it made me very miserable because it is exhausting. When I realized what had happened, it was the first time I started asking myself, who am I really? That was the start of my journey. I realized that I was living by other people's validation of what I thought was my identity. And it hit me so hard. The truth became clear to me. When you live by other people's validation, you would die of their criticism. This was a hard lesson that I had to learn, but one that plunged me into the hard journey of awakening to my true identity that is hidden in Christ. I don't have anything against using your titles, but let them not become your identity because they are false and they will always fail you. Your journey of awakening is the journey of becoming who you already are. It is your life goal and it's something you need to awaken to by allowing yourself to be in a very conscious way, saying your yes to the absolute source of life. That's how we are likened to the image of God. To do this, we need the three sets of eyes that for St. Bonaventure are the ways that we can truly see. The first set of eyes are the eyes through which we see all things as a blueprint of God. And as such, we have a sense of awe and wonder and reverence about things. The second set of eyes helps us to see our lives as it unfolds day by day. We can begin to see this by starting to do an honest inner house cleaning of our soul, and that may take a lifetime. The third eye helps us to see things as a whole, like a mystic. It is the work of contemplation that awakens you to your connection to the whole, the essence of your being. Your calling as a human being is to grow into your authentic self, your true identity. When you do so, you will not only find joy in your life, you will find your authentic journey of service of what it means to be human. And that, my friends, is your destiny. Your identity is deeply connected to your destiny. It's funny that in the story of Jacob, when the angel asked him his name, he said his name was Jacob. At that very moment, it felt like for the first time in his life, Jacob made the agreement to start living true to his name, to who he is. And it's only then that he was able to embrace his identity as the father of many nations. He's done pretending to be Esau, his brother. Now he wants to be Jacob. He wants to embrace his story. He wants to be who he is meant to be, Jacob. Now he can live life to the fullest because he has become fully alive to who he truly is, his true identity. No wonder the theologian and civil rights leader, Dr. Howard Thurman, said, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive." Do you find yourself comparing yourself to other people? Jealous about other people of what they have and who they are? Do you wish to be someone else or something else that is not truly you? Do you find yourself bogged down or elevated by titles or status? May you come to be freed from all these entanglements of falsehood and embrace your true identity. You are a child of God, and what you are seeking for elsewhere is already in you. The world does not need another fake you or false self. What the world needs is your true self, your true identity, so that you could embrace your destiny. So wake up to that which is already in you and become fully alive. God has never had a negative view about you. So do not have a negative view about yourself.
A lot of talk in our church today about the new evangelization, and we might ask, well, what's new about the new evangelization? One thing that's new is that we're trying to renew the faith in people who should already be Catholic, should already be Christian. Individuals, families, communities, whole cultures that need to rediscover the gospel. And so what's new is that they're getting a new shot in the arm of faith, of evangelization. But another thing that's new about it is the way that we do that. And the new media and groups like Shalom World TV are very important for bringing the gospel anew to our cultures, to our families, to each of us individually. And so I encourage all the viewers of Shalom World TV, and I encourage Shalom World TV themselves to keep up the good work, to keep watching this channel and to keep up the good work of presenting the Catholic faith to our world today.